Okay, can you hear me? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we'll just try we do have sound. Very good. So, I am here, and we've got a live Q&A, a very special one. And there is, what I'll do, I'm not going to use my mind. I'm not going to answer the questions myself, but we will use a online thing. I think it's been around since November, late November, called ChatGPT, and it's supposed to be an artificial intelligence-based thing. So I will ask any questions in the chat, and I will enter them on another computer, and we will see what answers we get from this ChatGPT thing. Anyway, there was a question about because I've got to retype them. Please keep the questions as short as they can. You can ask as many questions as you like. But anyway, we've got a question from T Court. How should I position a 20-meter dipole and a 40-meter dipole in my attic so they don't interact with each other? So I will try and lean over and retype that on the other computer. This is an interesting question. It's got a good amount of detail. And it may or may not be too detailed for ChatGPT, but sometimes I've tried it before, and sometimes it's been spot on. Other times it's been hilarious. Okay, so I'm just... Okay, because I'm doing it on another computer. Okay, we have an answer. Now, this thing is super quick. Righty-ho, and it's coming up on the screen. If I... ideally, I'd have a camera, so ideally I'd be doing it so that you'd be able to see the screen of the answers coming up. But anyway, it is typing as I speak, and we have quite a detailed answer. So let us read the answer out. The question was about positioning a 20 and 40-meter dipole in the attic so they didn't interact. Good question. Anyway, the answer: to minimize interaction between a 20-meter dipole and a 40-meter dipole in your attic, you should try to position them at least a quarter wavelength apart from each other. Well, that might not be possible, but anyway, I'll keep going. For a 20-meter dipole, the wavelength is approximately 14.15 meters. Completely wrong. Completely wrong. So the quarter wavelength distance would be approximately 3.54 meters. No, that's wrong, because the wavelength is 20 meters and the quarter wavelength is 5 meters. For a 40-meter dipole, the wavelength is approximately 7.07 meters. Well, that's even worse. So the quarter wavelength distance would be about 1.77 meters. Now, wavelength is longer for 40 meters than it is for 20, whereas they've got it shorter. So they don't understand the relationship between frequency and wavelength. Anyway, you should position the antenna at 90-degree angle to each other. This way, the electromagnetic field of one antenna will be perpendicular to the other, minimizing the interaction. Okay, it's a bit of a, that sort of sound, but I wouldn't do it in this case. Additionally, you should try to keep the antennas as far away from metal objects and other sources of interference as possible. That will help further reduce any unwanted interactions. Yeah, that's 100% right. Yep. Okay. Keep in mind that these are general guidelines, and the actual interaction between the antennas may depend on a variety of factors, such as specific characteristics of your attic and the surrounding environment. So it may be necessary to experiment with different positions to find the best configuration for your specific situation. Yeah, they have an out phrase, but yeah, basically, yeah, that answer is just basically half truths and some things are outright wrong. As someone else said, a fan dipole with a 40-meter dipole, 20-meter dipole off the one feeder, if you position the ends a reasonable distance, then yeah, that can work. You might get a small amount of interaction. You might have to chop their lengths a little bit, but you should be able to get it to work. So yeah, overall, I don't give that a very good response. But so anyway, thanks for your question, and a good one, and a really hard one to test. And if there's any more questions, then please type them down, even ones to do with opinions on amateur radio things. We'll see if it's even more worse. My XYL is right, even if she's wrong. Okay, well, let us type that in. Probably doesn't know what an XYL is. In fact, I'll make this a question. Is my XYL right, even if she's wrong? Okay. Oh, hang on. I didn't type it in properly. Well, okay. Well, that's interesting. I slightly typed it in. I wrote, is my XYL is right, even if she's wrong. So there's an extra is there. But this is quite good. Now, Chris, I think you'll like this. And if you've just joined, this is live and you can ask me anything. But instead of me doing the answering, I'm using the ChatGPT artificial intelligence. Just looking on the browser, it's chat.openai.com/chat. Anyway, about the XYL, is she right even if she's wrong? Well, I asked that question, and it says, it is a common phrase, in inverted commas, my XYL is always right even when she's wrong, is a humorous way of expressing the idea that one's partner or spouse is always correct, regardless of the circumstances. Well, that means that ChatGPT understands what an XYL is, a partner or a spouse. So that is actually pretty good. It is a playful way of showing affection and appreciation for one's partner, and acknowledges that even when they make mistakes, they are still loved and respected. However, the phrase should not be taken too literally, as it can be harmful if it leads to dismissing your partner's opinions or not taking their mistakes seriously. In a healthy relationship, relationship advice, okay, both partners should be open to listening to each other, discussing and solving problems together. So that is that's actually pretty good, actually. Okay, well, Flux has a question. I've got a question. How long should the radials for a quarter wavelength vertical antenna at ground height be? Okay. I'll just type that in. Okay. Now I'll just turn, this is very primitive, but that's the computer screen, and you probably can't read it, but this is the ChatGPT, website thing, and you can see it's pretty quick in its response, and it's like it's typing down stuff. So it gives you generally about 3 or 4, maybe about 4 or 5 paragraphs in answers. So there it is, typing out the answer. So I'll now read it out. Okay. Question was about quarter wavelength vertical and how long should radials. Length of the radial. This is the answer from not me, the artificial intelligence. The length of the radials for a quarter wavelength vertical antenna at ground height depends on the frequency of operation. Yeah, that's correct. For a quarter wavelength vertical antenna, the total length of the antenna, including the radials, is 1/4 of the wavelength of the operating frequency. No. Okay. They've made a mistake there. They've included the antenna length. But then here we are. To calculate the length of the radials, you can use the formula Radial length in meters is 142.5 divided by frequency in megahertz. No, that's not right. For example, if you're operating on a frequency of 14.250 megahertz, so it's actually using an amateur frequency, the length of the radials would be approximately 10 meters. No, that's wrong. They've used the formula for a half-wave dipole, so that would give you half-wavelength radials. It is important to note that the radials are typically not required for a quarter-wavelength vertical antenna that are mounted at ground level because the ground itself acts as a counterpoise. No, that's wrong. However, adding radials can help to improve the performance of the antenna. They're confusing a quarter wavelength with a half wavelength here. Also, keep in mind the radial length is not critical. A few percent deviation from a quarter wavelength is acceptable, and the actual number of radials can affect the performance. Generally, more radials will give better performance. You could argue that. Okay, so yeah, that's sort of not quite right. Okay, from ham radio. So yeah, I wouldn't rely on that. And it would be interesting if someone was to, because in America they publish the whole answer pool, the question pool for the technician, general, advanced exams. If someone put in all those questions to see if the ChatGPT would actually answer the ham test, that would be interesting. Anyway, okay, there's another question. Is my XYL resonant on 10 meters? That's from Ham Radio Enjoyer. Let's have a go with this. And if you've just joined, I'm live. I'm Peter VK3YE, and I'm doing a Q&A, but one not like any other. I am instead relying on this chat, openai.com artificial intelligence thing where you can type in a text statement, whatever. It's funny when you type in something like where do you live or how old are you, then it actually says it's declares what it is. Anyway, and we have a similar answer to this question. Is my XYL resonant on 10 meters? That was a question. As an AI language model, I do not have any information about your XYL, so I cannot provide an answer to your question about whether your XYL is resonant on 10 meters. The phrase XYL resonant on 10 meters refers to a radio frequency band and is not related to a person. Okay. In radio communication, the term resonant refers to an antenna that is tuned to the frequency of operation. Yeah, that's right. A resonant antenna is one that is able to efficiently radiate or receive the desired frequency. This is achieved by adjusting the physical characteristics of an antenna, such as its length, to match the wavelength of the operating frequency. Yep. It is unlikely that your XYL, who is a person, has any relation with radio frequency bands. As such, it is a phrase that should not be taken literally. Okay. 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 We've got some good questions here. From Chris, if you wind her up, then she can be shorter, like a helical. Anyway, what is Yaesu going to replace the FT818 with? Okay, let's see. Everyone wants to know this question, so let us see if we can get an answer for you. Okay, what is Yaesu going to replace the FT818 with? I did put in some other questions about politics and stuff, and it said that it would only worked up to 2021, so it didn't have recent stuff. So anyway, so it might not have this one. Anyway, it says, Yaesu is a brand of amateur radio equipment manufactured by the Vertex Standard Division of the Yamaha Corporation. Is that actually right? Is Yaesu made by Yamaha, the electric organs people or the motorbike people? Really? Someone can correct me on that. Anyway, Anyway, the Yaesu FT818 is a compact all-mode portable transceiver that covers the 160 to 10 meter amateur radio bands. It's not clear what Yaesu plans to replace the FT818 with. Yaesu typically releases new products and updates to their existing product line on a regular basis, but they do not announce the replacement of products until they're ready to be released. Therefore, it is difficult to predict exactly when a new model will be released or what features it will have. So it tries to say all these words, but it actually doesn't say very much there. It is possible that Yaesu will release an upgraded version of the FT818 with new features or a completely new model to replace it. However, this is just speculation, and it's better to check with Yaesu or their official website for more information. So yeah, it says lots of words, but really doesn't tell us very much. Okay. Okay, interesting, Chris. Being a Yamaha, I never Pro Music service agent, it would make sense. Okay. Okay. Who the first humans created were? Okay, that's from CNDBRN 79. I'll put that question in a moment. If you've just joined, I'm Peter VK3YE, and I'm live, and you can ask me anything. But when you do, you won't get an answer from me. You'll get an answer from Interactive Intelligence ChatGPT thing. And if you're watching this later, I'll put a link in the thing below. Anyway, okay, that was a question. Who the first humans created were? Who the first humans, or do you mean where the first humans? Anyway, I'll type in exactly how the question's written. The question of who created the first humans is a complex one that is central to many religious, philosophical, and scientific beliefs. According to many religious traditions, the first humans were created by a divine being or deity. For instance, in Christianity, the first humans were Adam and Eve, who were created by God in his image according to the Bible. In other religious traditions, such as ancient Egyptian religion and Hinduism, there are also stories of gods creating the first humans. From a scientific perspective, the first humans are believed to have evolved from a common ancestor with other primates over millions of years. The current scientific understanding is that the first humans belong to the genus Homo, which appeared in around 2.8 million years ago. The first anatomically modern humans, Homo sapiens, appeared around 300,000 years ago and are believed to have evolved in Africa. It is worth mentioning the question of the creation of human beings is still a topic of debate, and there are different perspectives. So yeah, they try and avoid not being too specific. Okay, what came first, the chicken or the egg, and why did the chicken cross the road? That's really two questions. We'll try. I'll split that up. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Okay, yeah, thanks to Technic. Yeah, database only to December 2021. So all questions. ChatGPT is not bind to the internet yet. Okay, so it's anyway, it's taking some time to answer what came first, the chicken or the egg. How many books has Peter Parker published? Yeah, okay, I know the answer, but I'll ask that in a moment. Anyway, it is thinking really hard. It's a really tough question. Or maybe because all these people are watching this, they're all going on to ChatGPT and asking their own stupid questions. Okay, GPT is wrong about Adam and Eve in the Bible. It's not written. The question of whether the chicken or the egg came first is a classic example of a paradox known as the chicken and egg problem. The question is often used to illustrate the concept of causality and raises the question of which came first, the chicken or the egg, and how that organism came to exist. From a biological perspective, the egg came first. Birds, including chickens, evolved from reptiles which laid eggs. So the first chickens would have hatched from eggs laid by their reptile ancestors. From a more philosophical perspective, the question can be seen as a paradox because it is impossible to know which came first without knowing the cause of the other. It can be argued that the egg came first because it contained all the genetic information necessary to create a chicken. But it could also be argued that the chicken came first because it is the parent that laid the egg. Ultimately, the question of what came first, the chicken or the egg, is a bit of a riddle that has intrigued people for centuries and has no definitive answer. Okay, why did the chicken cross the road? Let's. And if you've just joined this rather crazy session, I'm Peter VK3YE, and you can ask me anything, but it's actually artificial intelligence thing that's doing the answer, not me. And I'm just typing it in. It's still thinking about why the chicken cross the road. Maybe it would be interesting. Why should the chicken cross the road? If you're instinctively lazy like me, that's the better question. Why should the chicken cross the road? But anyway, I've typed in why did the chicken cross the road? And it's taking about as long to give an answer as what came first, the chicken or the egg. Let's have a look. It is still thinking. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if it's a lot of people trying to use it. Maybe if you have a question like why, it's a lot more effort to think about to make up an answer than it is if it's just a yes or no. It doesn't like chicken questions. That's quite possible. Oh, hang on. Just scroll down. The question, why did the chicken cross the road, is a classic riddle, often used as a humorous way to introduce a punchline. The most common punchline is to get to the other side. The punchline is meant to be funny because it is a simple and unexpected answer to the question, suggesting that the chicken had no other motive other than to simply get to the other side of the road. The riddle is generally understood as a light-hearted joke, and there is no definitive answer as to why the chicken would cross the road in real life, as chickens have many reasons to move around, as in looking for food, water, or a place to lay eggs. It is also worth noting that the phrase, why did the chicken cross the road, was populated in the United States in the 19th century and is one of the oldest American jokes still in circulation. Okay, so it's with the Yanks. And now Tiggy Dorset was asking, how many books has Peter Parker published? Now, I think I'm going to guess. I know the answer to this. There'll be it will be reference to another Peter Parker. Peter Parker, also known as Spider-Man, is a fictional character appearing in comic books, published by Marvel Comics. The character is created by writer Stan Lee and artist Steve Ditko. First appeared in Amazing Fantasy in 1962. He was a high school student and photographer who gained superhuman abilities after being bitten by a radioactive spider, or at least there's radio in there somewhere. He uses these abilities to fight crime as the superhero Spider-Man. As for the books he's published, it is not specified in the comics or movies, as it is not a central part of his character. Spider-Man's story typically focuses on his crime-fighting adventures and his personal life, other than his professional pursuits. Peter Parker is a fictional blah, blah, blah. Okay, what is, ask it, we've got a question about Python. Ask it, write Python code to power on a light. Actually, it's quite interesting. When you ask question, you can ask IT sort of questions, and it gives you, it talks about servers and stuff. So anyway, so let's try this. It might know what Python code is. Write Python code to power on a light. Actually, very quick. Oh, it's actually very quickly. But I'm sorry, but as a language model AI, I don't have the ability to control physical devices or access to them to write a code to power on a light. However, I can provide some general information on how you would control a light with a Python script. To control a light with a Python script, you would need to use a library that interfaces with the device or system that controls the light. For example, if you're controlling a light via a smart home device, such as a smart plug or light bulb, you would need to use a library that interfaces with the device's API. If you're controlling a light via a microcontroller, you would need a library that interfaces with the microcontroller's communication protocol. Additionally, you would now, if you're into Python, please let me know if this is correct. Additionally, you would need to have knowledge of the protocols or APIs of the specific device you're trying to control. Here's an example of a simple Python script that uses the PYHS100 library to control a TP-Link smart plug, assuming the plug is connected to the same network as the computer running the script. Now, I'll just turn the computer around. And it actually had some code there. You probably can't read it, but that's the first time I've seen an image of something come up. So I don't know if it's right. So yeah, okay. There's what looks like code. But yeah, okay. Keep in mind, this is a general example. You may need to adapt it for your specific setup and device. So it does actually have this image of what looks like code. What's the furthest kilometer watt contact made by VK3YE? Now, this will be interesting to see if this actually knows what VK3YE is. Okay, I've just typed that in, and you can ask me anything, and I will use ChatGPT to answer it. Anyway, we've got an answer pretty quick. I couldn't find any information about the furthest contact made by a specific amateur radio operator named VK3YE in terms of kilometers per watt. However, I can provide you some general information about the topic. Amateur radio operators, also known as hams, frequently engage in long-distance communication known as DXing, using a variety of modes and frequencies. Yeah, that's correct. One way to measure the distance of a contact is in terms of kilometers per watt, km/W. That's right, but it's not very good. This ratio is calculated by taking the distance of contact in kilometers and dividing by the transmitted power. The distance record for the longest contact in km/W is held by a Norwegian operator, L8A AJA, who made a contact of over 7,300 kilometers using just 0.02 watt of power. I reckon that's actually rubbish. That's 20 milliwatts, 7,300 kilometers. I reckon people have done a lot better than that. I reckon they've used, less than a milliwatt. Anyway, anyway, you can search LA8AJA and see what else. In fact, keep in mind that this is a general information about the distance records and that the mentioned operator may not be the same as VK3YE. I hope not. It's also worth to mention that these records are not official and are based on self-reported contacts by amateur radio operators. So good on LA8AJA for spanning 7,300 kilometers with 20 milliwatts, but I reckon others have gone further. Anyway, we're running out of questions. I think I've got to all of them. So ask me anything, and we'll see. We'll see how we can go. Furthest received signal. Furthest received signal. I suppose it'd be something from a distant galaxy. I'll just type in furthest received signal and see what it comes up with. And XXX Jab asked about how you could set up using Whisper, and I was impressed. Actually, I asked about how do you build a radio, and it was actually surprisingly good on that as well. Okay. Furthest received signal. The furthest received signal in amateur radio communication. Oh, okay, well, I didn't mention amateur communication, but it seems to think that we're on that topic. It is a difficult record to track as it depends on many factors such as propagation conditions, equipment, and location. However, there are some known records of long-distance communication achieved by amateur radio operators. One of the furthest received signals made between two amateur radio operators is one located in Massachusetts and the other in the United Kingdom. Rubbish. There's a lot further distances in between those. But then it goes on and says the contact was made using the very low frequency band at a frequency of 3.39 kilohertz. Really? And the distance between the two stations was approximately 8,000 miles. Now, I think Massachusetts is a bit nearer the UK than 8,000 miles, or maybe 12,875 kilometers. Another record that was made by a group of amateur radio operators in the United Kingdom used extremely low frequency of 0.1 hertz. Don't think so. To make a contact with another station in the United States. The distance between the two stations is approximately 3,200 miles. Or 5,150 kilometers. Okay, that's a bit more like it. It's worth mentioning these records are not official. They're based on self-reported contacts, blah, blah, blah. The conditions were ideal, and it's not possible to replicate these results. Yeah, so I think they've got the frequencies and some of the distances wrong. Now, I've got a question from Chris asking, what is the best way to learn Morse code? Okay, great question. Okay, let us see. Morse code is it's come up pretty quick there. There's only 10 people watching. Not very many of you. You must be pretty bored. Okay. To answer your question, Chris, Morse code is a method of communicating text information through a series of on-off tones, lights, or clicks. It was first developed for use in telegraphy, but is still used today by amateur radio operators and emergency services. Here are some ways you can learn Morse code. Use a Morse code learning app or website. There are many apps and websites available that can help you learn Morse code. Yeah, that's true. These typically include audio recordings of the code and practice exercises to help you memorize the sounds. Yep. Practice listening to Morse code. You can find audio recordings of Morse code online and practice listening to them. This will help you to get the rhythm and timing of the code. Practice sending and receiving Morse code. Once you've learned the basics of the code, practice sending and receiving. You can do this by sending a message to a friend or family member who also knows Morse code, or by using a practice oscillator to send code to yourself. Practice regularly to become proficient in Morse code. You need to practice it regularly. Set aside time each day to practice listening and sending the code. Use mnemonics. Mnemonics are memory aids that can help you remember the code. For example, you can associate letter E with a simple sound like dit and T with dart. Some people might vary on that. Keep in mind, learning Morse code takes time and practice, so be patient with yourself and don't get discouraged if you don't get it right away. With consistent practice, you will become proficient in no time. Well, okay, all very general, but I don't think there's anything there that's really wrong. So that's your question. Now, answered. How do you learn Morse code? Paul VK3HN wants to know, show me the design of a low-pass filter designed for the 80-meter amateur band. Well, I don't think this thing does pictures and diagrams yet. That would be another interesting advance if it actually draws you circuit diagrams. Anyway, I will type this thing in. Show me the design of a low-pass filter for the... Okay. A low-pass filter is a circuit that allows low-frequency signals to pass through while blocking or attenuating higher frequency signals. Correct. Wow, okay. What have we got here? Here's an example. I spoke too soon. This is amazing. Here's an example of a simple design of a low-pass filter that can be used for the 80-meter amateur radio band. And now it's really hard to see, but there is an attempt at a diagram. Now, and it's coming around with all these words. The thing is, though, that the diagram at the top, how do I hold this? It's probably hard to see, but that's labeled C2 and then C1. It's got RF input L1, and RF output. It really doesn't make sense when you see that. But anyway, it's got a description. In this design, L1 is an inductor and C1, oh, maybe it's sideways. It doesn't actually show you the RF input. In this design, L1 is an inductor and C1 and C2 are capacitors. So the idea of having one inductor and two capacitors is right. The values of L1, C1, and C2 determine the cutoff frequency of the filter, which is the frequency at which the filter starts to attenuate signals. That is absolutely correct. For the 80 meter band, the cutoff frequency would be around 3.5 megahertz. I'd say 3.8 or 4, but anyway, near enough. So the values of L1, C1, and C2 should be chosen to provide a cutoff at or near this frequency. Yeah. You can use software like Filter Design Tool to calculate the values of the components based on the cutoff frequency and other parameters. That sounds right. It's worth noticing this is a basic example and there are many variations in different types of low-pass filter. This one's shown as a simple LC low-pass filter. Additionally, the design of a filter is a complex task that blah, 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 requires knowledge of circuit theory and electromagnetic range. So, yeah, the diagram is sort of not quite right. But, yeah, it's sort of, it needs refinement, but it sort of has it. Okay, what is the history of Echo Charlie HF pirate radio? Now, this is something that's a bit of a in thing for UK people. There's a guy, what's his name? He's on YouTube. He's a G4, and he's got amateur radio and ghost videos, and they're quite hilarious. And he's Ray is his name. Ray's pirate and ghost stories, I think. Anyway, I don't think any artificial. I don't think Ringray Manchester has done Echo Charlie. Ringray, he's done more repeater jammers and been doing a lot of pirate radio, Manchester area pirate radio stuff. But yeah, I think it's actually Ray, pirate and ghost stories that have done a lot of Echo Charlie, as he was around at that time. Anyway, I will ask this chatbot thing. Okay, what is the history of Echo Charlie HF pirate radio? All right. Echo Charlie is a name that's been used by several different pirate radio stations over the years, so the specific history of Echo Charlie HF pirate radio is not clear. Generally speaking, pirate radio refers to an unlicensed radio station that operates outside of the regulations set by government and international bodies. Pirate radio can be a hobby or an act of political or social protest, often operated by amateur radio enthusiasts or individuals, who want to broadcast content that is not being offered to mainstream or licensed stations. Pirate radio stations have been in existence since the early days of radio broadcasting, and their popularity has ebbed and flowed over time. In the United States, pirate radio activity was more common in the 1960s and 70s, when many people were frustrated by the limited choices offered by commercial radio. In the UK, pirate radio has a long history dating back to the 60s, with ships anchored in the North Sea transmitting rock and roll music and other popular genres that were not played by the BBC. These stations were known as offshore radio, and some of them was able to get a huge audience. It's worth noting that the illegal nature of pirate radio makes it hard to track their specific history, and there is no information about an Echo Charlie HF pirate radio specifically. So, yeah, doesn't quite do Echo Charlie. Yep. Okay, SFI 234 now very high predictions. All right. Probably doesn't know what SFI is, so I'll put in solar flux index. Okay, solar flux index 234 now very high. Any predictions? The solar flux index, SFI, in brackets, so it does understand that, is a measure of the amount of solar radiation received by the Earth's upper atmosphere. Blah, 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 measured in solar flux units used to predict the level of solar activity and the resulting effects on the ionosphere and geomagnetic field. I think that's right. A value of 234 is considered to be very high. High solar flux values can indicate increased solar activity, such as sunspots, flares, and coronal mass ejections, can lead to increased ionization and improve radio propagation and conditions for HF communication, including amateur radio. So keeps mentioning amateur radio, maybe because it learns that we've been talking about amateur radio. It's worth noting that solar activity is a complex and dynamic process and difficult to predict exactly. It's also important keep in mind can have negative effects like radio blackouts, auroras, and power grid disruptions. Blah, blah, blah. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and space weather prediction. So provide real-time solar flux and other data. So, okay. Okay, so it doesn't go into specifics, but it's a pretty decent answer. Okay, well, what happens? Okay. How can I get next week's UK lottery numbers? Okay. And if you've just joined, I'm getting a bit thirsty actually. I've just come back from a walk along the beach and didn't even get a drink before I came on here. It's about 8:30 a.m. Anyway, anyway, if you've just joined, I'm Peter VK3YE, and yeah, you can ask me anything, or at least I'm not actually using my mind. I'm just retyping into this artificial intelligence ChatGPT thing, and I'm reading out its answers. And sometimes it hits, sometimes it misses. Anyway, as for the lottery numbers, there's no way to predict or guarantee the numbers that will be drawn in the UK lottery. The numbers are chosen randomly, and each drawing is independent of a previous drawing. If you would like to participate in the UK lottery, you can blah, blah, blah. You can check official lottery websites for next lottery dates draw. Worth noting that many systems and strategies that claim to predict the winning numbers, none of them are scientifically proven. Most of them are based on chance and luck. Lottery is a form of gambling and it is important to play responsibly and within your means. Yeah, there's a bit of a thread when you talk about things like gambling or pirate radio. There's a responsibility angle, how they say it's illegal or you shouldn't do it, or whatever. So now Chris Wilson just said bad hams. So let's just put in bad hams and see what it says about bad hams. Bad hams can refer to a few different things in the context of amateur radio. So it's obsessed with amateur radio. It's not concerned with dodgy meat you might buy at the butcher. It can refer to individuals who engage in illegal or unethical activities while operating an amateur radio. Operating on frequencies or modes not authorized for amateur radio use, interfering with other radio communication, falsifying identification, or impersonating other operators, or maybe even talking in a high-pitched voice, using equipment that does not comply with technical regulations, operating in a manner that causes harmful interference to other services or endangers life or property. It can also refer to amateur radio operators who engage in unprofessional conduct, such as using profanity or making offensive or threatening comments on the air. Ignoring the protocols of the amateur radio service or the customs of the amateur radio community. It is important to note that these behaviours are not tolerated by the amateur radio community, and those who engage with them risk losing their licence and facing legal penalties. It's worth mentioning the majority of amateur radio operators are responsible, respectful, and follow the regulations and rules set by the government and international bodies. So yeah, so that's what it says about bad hams, Chris, and thanks for your permission to go and get a drink. But I'll just, before I do that, I'll just type in, how do I improve the performance of a Pixie transceiver? Now, I've written about that on my website, but we'll see what this artificial intelligence thing says. Okay, I'll be back. Right. Rightio. Okay. The Pixie. The Pixie transceiver is a simple low-power amateur radio transceiver that can be used for communication on the 80-meter band. Wrong. It's a 40-meter band rig. Here are some ways to improve the performance of a Pixie transceiver. Use a good quality antenna. The antenna is the most important part of a radio system, and a good quality, properly tuned antenna will significantly improve the performance of the transceiver. Improve power supply. The Pixie okay, yeah, you do need a full-size antenna. Improve power supply. The Pixie transceiver is designed to run on low power, so stable and clean power supply is essential to the performance of the transceiver. Most people just use a battery with it. But yeah, they're sort of right. Like a 9-volt battery near the end of its life is, you know, at the best of times, a 9-volt battery I think is a bit underpowered for it. Adjust the output power. The Pixie transceiver can be adjusted to different output power levels. Actually, that's not true. No, you can't do it. You have to modify the circuit. There's no adjustment. Experiment with different settings to find the optimal power output for your specific operating conditions. Now, there's no optimum power limit. You tune for maximum smoke until just before the point where it blows up. So no, you have to, more is better. Check the alignment. The Pixie transceiver is a simple circuit, but it still requires proper alignment. Well, the only thing that's variable on it is that potentiometer that I think changes the frequency offset. So no, there's no things to alignment. Check the alignment of the circuit and adjust it as necessary. Use good quality headphones, which can improve your ability to hear weak signals and reduce noise. Yeah, that's probably right, which can help you make contact. Use a good quality microphone. Complete nonsense. A good quality microphone can help improve the clarity and intelligibility of your transmitted signal. Now, the Pixie is a CW transmitter, so no microphone. Yeah, so that's dead wrong. Keep in mind that a Pixie transceiver is a simple device and there is a limit to how much performance can be improved. But by following these tips, you can help ensure that your Pixie transceiver is operating at its best. So yeah, mixture of motherhood statements and some errors. Okay, from Josh N1JGJB. I have plenty of space on my property. Been looking at something other than a dipole or tower. What are vertical good options that won't break the bank? No DIY. Well, you've just you've just requested something. Oh, okay. I'm now going into my answers. I'll let the artificial intelligence thing have a say. Let's see if I'll try and type all this stuff. It's a bit long. I have plenty, but it might give some context. So we'll see if this works. Been looking at something other than dipole. What are vertical good options? Options. Okay, there's all these. Okay, I've just typed that in. So there's all these things. There are several vertical antenna options that are good alternatives to dipoles and towers, and they won't break the bank. Okay, so it's got the framing of the question right. Here are a few examples. Ground-mounted verticals. These are vertical antennas that are mounted directly in the ground. They typically consist of a metal tube or pipe with one or more radials, wires that extend out from the base of the antenna, and a matching network at the base. Ground-mounted verticals are relatively inexpensive and easy to install, but they can be affected by nearby metal objects like fences and power lines. Yeah, that's fair. Portable verticals. These are vertical antennas that can be set up and taken down, making them a good option for portable or temporary operation. They are typically made of lightweight materials and can be used with separate counterpoints or radials. Yeah, okay. That's all right. Vertical dipoles. These are vertical antennas that consist of two metal poles or tubes, one for the radiator and one for the reflector. They're relatively inexpensive and easy to install, but they may require a larger area of clear space than a single vertical element. Not really, because they're sort of in the same plane. Verticals with elevated radials. These are vertical antennas that have radials that are elevated off the ground, either by using a support structure, such as a mast, or by suspending them from nearby tree or pole. Elevated radials can improve the performance of the antenna by reducing ground. Oh, that's funny. It's just cut out there. Maybe there's a word limit, but presumably say by reducing ground losses or something. So there's your answers. But to go back to my thing, no DIY. Well, no, you got to, if you're talking about cheap and good and build it yourself, well, or not building it yourself, you can only have two of those. You can have it cheap, and you can buy it, but it won't be any good. You can have it good, you can have it cheap, but you'll have to build it yourself. There's no getting away. You're going to have to build your own antennas if you want it to be cheap and good. Otherwise, if you don't want to build stuff, you have to spend money, and you have to spend a lot of money if you want it to be good. If you don't want to spend much money and you don't want to build, then it's not going to be any good. So, yeah, you're going to have to build yourself. There's no getting, you can't avoid it. And wire antennas are super cheap. They can be super good. If you've got plenty of space, you can have temporary, and you're going to have some sort of way of getting the wire up. It could be putting wires in trees. That would be super cheap. If you had a 2-element quad made out of wire, then it can be vertically polarized. That would be super good. It's super cheap. But yeah. But if you just want a single vertical, then you could get fishing poles or even a spider beam pole. They're a bit expensive, but they will hold up. They're stronger. You could put a vertical there, but I think you're going to have to build something. Okay, now Chris was asking about suitable replacement for the MPF 102 JFET. So let's see what it says about the JFET. The MPF 102 is an N-channel junction field effect transistor that is commonly used in a wide range of electronic circuits. It's known for its low noise and high input impedance, making it a suitable choice for use in preamplifiers, audio circuits, and other applications. Yep, I pay that. There are several JFETs that can be used as a replacement for the MPF 102, depending on specific requirements of the circuit. Here are a few examples. 2N5457 N-channel JFET, similar specs, including a low noise figure, high input impedance, and low capacitance. I think that's right. J201, I don't know that one, but anyway, this is another N-channel JFET, also used as a replacement. 2N3819 N-channel FET, similar specifications. Yep. Low noise figure, high input impedance. J310, another one. Yeah, I think, they all ring a bell. So I think they're all okay. Keep in mind the choice of replacement device depends on specific requirements of the circuit, and it's important to check the data sheet. Yeah, they've always got a thing to ensure compatibility. So, yep. I think that's all right. My money. Oh, Paul. My money is on J310. Okay. Well, J310 did come up. Okay, we'll try Paul's phrasing of it. What is the modern day equivalent of the MPF 121 dual gate MOSFET? Wow, that's more obscure. Well, of course, apparently I've never tried this, but if you get two junction FETs, like two MPF 102s, you can basically make a dual gate MOSFET with the extra pin. I should try that for a mixer for radio. Anyway, Chris is talking about MPF 131s, and there's an MFE 131. Anyway, Let us go with what is a modern for the MPF 121. Okay, let's see what it says. The MPF 121 is a dual gate metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistor. It's commonly used in a wide range of electronic circuits, particularly in RF and microwave applications. I'm not sure about microwaves, but certainly RF. It's known for a high input impedance, low noise figure, and high voltage rating. There are several modern-day substitutes for the MPF 121, depending on the specific requirements. Here are a few examples. BF998, N-channel dual-gate MOSFET with similar specifications, including high input impedance, low noise figure, and high voltage rating. BF960, this is another N-channel dual-gate MOSFET that's commonly used as a replacement, similar specifications, and is available from many manufacturers. BF998S, this is an N-channel MOSFET, similar blah, blah, blah. BF998T, this is another N-channel blah, blah, blah. It is worth noting that choice of replacement device depends on the specific requirements, blah, blah, check the data sheet. Blah blah blah. Okay, so it's given a few. It's given a few. So you might wonder, what about a? All right, so yeah, keep your questions going if you've just joined. I'm Peter VK3YE, but I'm not the one answering the questions. I'm using interactive ChatGPT. Artificial intelligence, and it's quite entertaining if you just randomly put in questions and it can give you answers. Yeah, so I think I've come down to the end of all the questions, so ask me more. Oh, okay. There's some comments from Chris. The Pixie was an 80-meter rig, but it was updated to 40 meters. Okay. Who's been on air lately? I'll just who's been on air lately. It is difficult to say who has been on the air lately, as there are millions of amateur radio operators worldwide who use the airwaves at any given time. Amateur radio communication can take place on various frequencies, modes, and across different bands. One way to find blah blah blah. One way to find out who has been on air lately is to listen on the various amateur bands, and you can also check the online logbooks of the amateur radio contacts called QSO's Conversations. Some amateurs post their contacts on their logbooks for others to see. Another way you can find out who's been on air lately is by monitoring active nets. A net is a group of amateur radio operators. These nets have a net control, blah, blah. It's worth mentioning not all communications on amateur radio bands are publicly available. Some of them are done for emergency or private communication and not for public listening. Actually, all those paragraphs are right, except the last paragraph. That's not true. All amateurs, can be listened by the public. What about some of the digital modes? Okay. I will just try something else. Okay, there's a question from Chris. There's the question about making radio waves about plans. Just type in something. I'll just come up with a question. What is DX? Now, the reason why, what is DX? Is thinking about it. Because I put that question in earlier on, and I got one specific answer. And, oh, that's interesting. Okay. Well, okay, the DX, the answer I'm getting now, after I've been chatting about all this radio stuff, is DX is a term used in amateur radio to refer to long-distance communication, abbreviation of the phrase distant station. Some people say that the X is unknown, and refers to the practice of making contact. In practice, DXing is popular activity. Anyway, the point of this is when I started this morning, I just put in DX, and it said it was to do with mathematics. So I remember at school about this du, dx, and graphs and circles and unit circles and all that sort of stuff. And of course, I was just thinking about CQ dx. But anyway, yeah, so it had, so before we were talking about ham radio, it had used the mathematical meaning of dx and given an answer. But since we've been chatting about radio, it's latched on to what we're talking about. And so it's given an amateur radio answer for DX. Okay. What's the plans for YouTube channel in 2023? Maybe you're asking about my YouTube channel. I'll just put in what's the plans for VK3YE YouTube channel and see if it can say what can work out what I'm thinking about. I am an AI module. Okay. Good, we put that question in. I am an AI model. My knowledge cutoff is 2021, and I'm not able to provide you with information about the plans for VK3YE's YouTube channel in 2023. Okay, now I'm blushing. VK3YE is a well-known amateur radio operator who runs a popular YouTube channel where he shares his experience and knowledge of amateur radio. He has a wide variety of videos that range from tutorials on radio equipment and operation to demonstration of different antennas and operating modes. The channel content is diverse and provides a lot of useful and educational material for amateur radio enthusiasts. So thanks for the plug. I'm not able to provide specific information on what plans VK3Y has for his YouTube channel, but it's worth noting that amateur radio is a hobby that's ever evolving and the operator may adapt to new technologies and trends. It is possible that new and exciting content will be shared on the channel. The best way to find out what plans VK3YE has for his YouTube channel is to check the channel directly and follow him on social media. Yep, I do have a Facebook page, VK3YE Radio Books, and read his posts. So yeah, okay, good answer there. Now, what is Chris asked, what's the performance difference between a copper wire antenna and an aluminium wire antenna? Okay. Between copper wire antenna. Okay, copper and aluminium are both commonly used materials for antennas and amateur radio. Both materials have their own unique properties that can affect performance of the antenna. Copper wire antennas are known for their high conductivity and low resistance, which can lead to lower losses and higher efficiency. Copper wire also has a lower coefficient of thermal expansion than aluminium, which can help reduce stress on the antenna when temperatures change. Copper wire is also less affected by corrosion, which can prolong the life of the antenna. Aluminium wire antennas, on the other hand, have some advantages such as being lightweight, durable, and less expensive than copper wire. Aluminium wire also has higher coefficient of thermal expansion than copper wire, which can help reduce stress on the antenna when temperatures change. Hang on. Now, if we look at what it said for copper, which I just read out, I said that copper wire also had a lower coefficient of thermal expansion than aluminium, which can help reduce stress on the antenna when temperatures change. But then with aluminium wire, if you read from aluminium, it says it has a higher coefficient of thermal expansion than copper wire, which can help reduce stress on the antenna when temperatures change. So it's actually saying different things there. However, aluminium wire has a higher resistance than copper wire, which can lead to higher losses and lower efficiency. Aluminium wire is also more affected by corrosion, which can shorten the life. It's worth noting that choice of material will depend on specific requirements and environment and budget. Copper wire tends to have better performance, but they may be more expensive and heavier. Aluminium wire antennas tend to have lower performance than copper wire, might be less expensive and more lightweight. It's important to keep in mind the performance of an antenna is general stuff. So there we are. So I've answered that. What is the best ham radio YouTube channel to watch? Mirror, mirror on the wall. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Okay. Here's the best. Okay, this might be a bit biased because someone mentioned VK3Y before. Anyway, there are many amateur radio YouTube channels available, and the best one for you will depend on the specific interest or need. Yeah, can't disagree with that. Here are a few popular amateur radio YouTube channels you may find useful. Ham Radio Crash Course. This channel provides a wide variety of content, including tutorials on radio equipment and operation, demonstrations of different antennas and operating modes, and reviews of new and popular amateur radio gear. VK3YE comes in at number 2. This channel is run by a well-known amateur radio operator who shares his experience and knowledge of amateur radio. Has a wide variety of videos, blah, 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 tutorials, antennas, and we've heard all about this before. All right. 3, Ham Radio Concepts. This channel provides a wide variety of content, including tutorials on radio equipment, demonstrations of antennas, operating modules, and reviews. Ham Radio Q&A, run by a group of amateur radio operators who answer questions from viewers and provide tips and tricks. Ham Radio 360, a wide variety of content, tutorials, demonstrations. It's worth noticing there are many other YouTube channels that are dedicated to amateur radio, and the best one, blah, blah, blah. Check the reviews and ratings. So, yeah, okay. Okay. If we hadn't been talking about VK3Y before, maybe it wouldn't have picked that up. But anyway, are you considering to treat yourself to a new radio or happy with what I have? That question's being asked of me. I'll just reword it slightly. Is VK3YE considering okay, I've reworded it. Is VK3YE considering treating himself to a new radio, or is he happy with what he's got? Okay. I'm sorry, as I'm an AI model, I don't have real-time information on the plans or preferences of individuals like VK3YE. Best way to know is he's considering treating himself to a new radio, or is he happy with it? So check his YouTube channel or social media, where you might share information about his current equipment and future plans. Amateur radio is a hobby that's evolving, and many amateur radio operators like to experiment, so it's possible he might be considering a new radio. However, it's also possible he might be happy with his current equipment and there's no plans for upgrade. Okay. Why does it rain so much in Wales? Now, okay, why does it rain so much in Wales? Okay, that's an interesting question. I'll do a second follow-up question on that. Because one other thing, I was asking this of other questions yesterday. Okay, some good questions there. And it's really thinking hard about why it rains so much in Wales. It's really thinking hard. Whether it's thinking hard, it's a why question, and we've found out before that if you ask why, it's complex. So there's a lot of thinking time, or maybe a lot of people are trying to use it. And bravo. Okay, well, you've given it a really hard design task there. Linear amplifier on 70 centimeters. So yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. Sydney or Melbourne. Yeah, okay, we'll answer that as well. It is really thinking about this raining. Oh, here we are. Wales is known for its high rainfall, which can be attributed to several factors. Location. Wales is located on the western coast of the UK, which means it's exposed to prevailing westerly winds that bring moisture from the Atlantic Ocean. That results in a high amount of rainfall throughout the year. Yeah, I think that's right. Topography, mountainous country with high peaks and valleys can cause the winds to rise and cool. What's the name of that effect? something, a trop of, anyway, learned it in school. Anyway, leading to clouds forming and rain falling. Yeah, that's true. Weather patterns. Rail is often affected by low pressure systems that move in from the Atlantic Ocean, bringing with them heavy rainfall. Climate change is also affecting weather patterns of Wales and the rest of the UK, increasing likelihood of extreme events such as heavy rainfall. Ocean currents. The warm Gulf Stream flows to the north of Wales, which brings warmth and moisture to the area. It's worth noting that even though Wales has a high amount of rainfall, it varies across the region, and some areas might receive more or less than others. Additionally, the country has a maritime climate, which means that though it rains a lot, temperatures are mild throughout the year. I think that's all correct. Never been to, I have actually been to Wales, but anyway, with those long place names, yeah, I think that's right. So yeah, that's the answer. I'm now going to ask a question, still on Wales. Why does it hardly ever rain in Wales? Well, let's see. Why does it hardly rain in Wales? So I've based a question on the false premise. So yeah, it's a loaded question. And there we are. It's obviously taken my previous question because it says, I apologize for the confusion. I made a mistake on my previous answer. Wales is known for its high rainfall, not for hardly rain. Even though there was actually nothing to apologize for. But it was me who was being stupid. Anyway, Wales is located on the western coast of the UK, means it's exposed to prevailing westerly winds that bring moisture, brings high amount of rainfall, maritime climate, amount of rainfall. Okay, so it pretty much reiterated the previous answer, but in words. Why does it hardly rain in Wales? So yeah, the thing apologise. Okay, now there was another thing about 70 centimeter linear amplifiers. Okay. Okay, design a linear amplifier for UHF 70 centimeter band. That's what I've typed in. If you've just joined, this is Q&A. I'm Peter VK3YE, and I'm live, but I'm not doing all the answers. I'm using artificial intelligence, and I'm getting answers from you in the chat, getting questions from you in the chat, typing it in, and putting it in artificial intelligence and regurgitating its answers back at you. Anyway, it's designing a linear amplifier for 70 centimeters requires some understanding of circuit design and RF engineering. It's important to note that building an RF amplifier requires certain safety precautions and regulations and is important to comply. If you're not familiar with RF circuit design, it may be best to consult an experienced RF engineer and seek professional help. Here's a basic design of a UHF 70 centimeter linear amplifier. The amplifier must operate within the UHF 70 centimeter band, 420 to 450. It's not quite that big anymore. Power output. The amplifier should be able to provide a minimum of 50 watts of output power. Well, that's your choice, but yeah, okay. Amplifier stage, it should operate in a single stage Class A or Class AB configuration. Maybe it could be multiple stages, but anyway, we did say linear amplifier, so that's A or AB is okay. Transistor, the amplifier should use a high power UHF RF transistor, such as the MRF151G. I don't know that transistor. You might comment on whether that's okay. Input and output matching, the amplifier should use input and output matching circuits to optimize power transfer and reduce reflections. Yeah, okay, yeah. Power supply, well-regulated power supply, stable voltage and current. Yep. Protection circuits should include protection circuits to prevent damage from overheating. So it's given basically things that you would ask for. This is a basic design for, hang on, linear amplifier in the UHF 70 centimeter band. It hasn't come up, but it may require additional components and tweaking depending on specific requirements. Building RF amplifiers requires certifications, compliance and regulations and safety, and is advisable seek professional help. Okay. Well, it hasn't given the circuit, but anyway, it's given you some of the design factors that you might think about when building a 70 centimeter amplifier. Okay. What is better city to live in, Sydney or Melbourne? All right. Now this, okay, I'm asking what is the better city to live in, Sydney or Melbourne? But what I'll do is it hasn't. I don't think we've spoken about Sydney or Melbourne previously in the chat, so I don't think it's got any history to go on. Although I've logged in as a user, so maybe there's sessions I've had before. I don't think I've discussed those cities either, but it's going to give you a half and half, a wishy-washy sort of an answer. I think they always say that many people like both cities and whatever. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Sydney and Melbourne are both major cities in Australia, and both have their own unique features that make them attractive places to live. Both cities offer a high standard of living with excellent infrastructure, good healthcare, and plenty of cultural and recreational activity. Sydney is known for its iconic landmarks like the Sydney Opera House and Harbour Bridge, as well as beautiful beaches and coastal lifestyle. It has a diverse population with many different cultures and cuisines. Sydney also has a strong economy and job market, making it a good place to live for those looking for work. Melbourne, on the other hand, is known for its rich arts and cultural scene. Yeah, it's the cliches. Yeah, Sydney people are Philistines and socialites, and we are culture arts people. It is considered the cultural capital of Australia and home to many museums, galleries, and theatres. It's also known for its great food and coffee culture. Yeah, that's a cliche, as well as its vibrant nightlife. The city is also known for its parks and gardens. We did have the Garden State on our number plates 40 years ago, and it's considered one of the most livable cities in the world. Yeah, the livable city thing comes up. I'm surprised I didn't mention the footy. Ultimately, the choice between Sydney and Melbourne will depend, and they didn't mention the Melbourne Cup either. The choice between Sydney and Melbourne will depend on your personal preferences and lifestyle. Both cities have a lot to offer, and it's worth considering factors such as job opportunities, housing costs, and proximity to family and friends, and access to amenities you value most. So, yeah, it's a buck each way. How do I find a girlfriend? Okay. I wonder if it will just say online. Or I'll say there are many ways to find, finding a girlfriend can be a challenging and daunting task, but it is important to remember that everyone has their own unique journey and there is no right way to go about it. Be open-minded. Here are a few tips. Okay. Be open-minded. Don't limit yourself to a specific type of person. Being open-minded is different people. Be confident. Believe in yourself and your ability to attract a girlfriend. Confidence can be attractive to others and make you more approachable. Be social. Get out and about and meet new people. Join clubs or groups that interest you. Maybe not an amateur radio club, but anyway. Attend social events and don't be afraid to strike up conversations. Be authentic. Be true to yourself and let your personality shine through. Being generally, be patient. Finding takes time and patience. Don't put too much pressure. Online dating, yeah, okay. Consider online dating. Many platforms, and it can be respectful. Always be respectful and considerate. Okay, remember, building relationship takes time and effort. And being yeah. Okay, so there's your question. What is the best Australian? Oh, hang on. There's some question on spiders and snakes. All right. How come Australia has so many deadly spiders? How come Australia has so many deadly spiders and snakes? We'll probably say it's been cut off from the rest of the world and whatever. And they've evolved. Anyway, that's this. Okay. Australia is known, okay, so it's a cliche, but having large number of, and this is due to a combination of factors, including its unique geology, climate, and history. Geology? It was more geography. Anyway, they correct on the first point, geography. Island continents been isolated from other land masses for millions of years, allowed many unique and ancient species to evolve. Climate, a wide range of climates from rainforests to deserts. Yeah, many different species. History, continent was originally settled by Indigenous Australians who developed a deep knowledge and respect for local fauna. However, when Europeans arrived, they brought with them new animals, plants, and diseases, had significant impact on native fauna and flora. Venom. Many of the spiders and snakes have venom that's highly toxic because venom is a key defense mechanism for these animals, and over time evolved to produce venom. It's worth noting, even though Australia has the majority of bites and stings are not fatal and with proper attention, treatment. Additionally, remember that most of these dangerous are shy and prefer to avoid humans, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so there's a few things on our venomous. What is the best Australian beer? Okay. It will say something that things will vary, and Australia has many different types of beers and whatever. And let's see. It's thinking about it though. Maybe it has to have a drink. If you've joined me live, I'm Peter VK3YE, and this is a Q&A. We have been going for nearly 90 minutes, so I don't know how long we'll go on for. Anyway, it's thinking hard about what is the best Australian beer. Now I'm using artificial intelligence to try and maybe people are over on watching Callum's thing live. It's still thinking about the beer thing. Now, if you're watching from overseas, it's 9:13 a.m. here in Melbourne. And well, yeah, my main stuff I've been doing lately, it is really thinking hard about the beer. Going to be late for work, chatting to that. I reckon some people would probably enjoy chatting with GPT more than their work colleagues. But anyway, luckily, I don't have to worry about going anywhere. It is really, it is. This had better be a good answer. An error occurred. If this issue persists, please contact us through our help center. There is an error. Let's regenerate the response. Well, stop generating. What is the best Australian? Ask a high Q on amateur radio. Okay, I was playing with this yesterday, and maybe it doesn't like you having a go with this. So we've been going at this for over an hour. Let's try typing it again. What is the best Australian beer? Anyway, I think it's stopped. It's got bored of all these questions. 69mega.com, you are an idiot and you will be banned and reported. Yet you are a spammer. Okay. Yeah. Go away. Okay. Well, no, not very intelligent there. Okay. What about this haiku on amateur radio? Right, haiku amateur radio. Well. Radio waves sing. Amateur hearts aflutter with joy. In sync, we reach out. Okay. Haiku. Let's regenerate this response. Let's try another. Ham radio waves sing. Amateur voices distant. Bonding tech and hearts. Yeah? Here's another. You can do this quick. Amateur radio waves converting distant friends near. Silent key in heart. Let's try another. Now it's thinking about this one. Should be included in every Yaesu user manual. Now this is really thinking. Okay, let's try typing. Oh, here we are. Radio waves sing. It has this thing about singing and waves. Oh, I'll read it again. Radio waves sing. Amateur voices join in tune. Distance melts away. Actually, how about now? Okay, haiku is simple. What about a limerick? Limerick would be even more fun. So I'll see if it can if it can write limericks in amateur radio. It's taking a bit longer to generate the next one. Write limerick amateur radio. Let's see what I've wow, well, it is even working for limericks. There once was a ham operator whose signal was quite an elater. He'd chat on the airwaves with fellow ham savvies and never once was a traitor. Okay, let's try another one. It's thinking about it, but yeah, a limerick would be a bit harder. You know, there's more lines. It's got rhyming, so it's forcing it into vocabulary that it. Yeah, well, if you've just joined, there's Q&A where artificial intelligence is trying to answer your questions. We've been hit and miss, but it's mostly been a bit of fun. If you're a beginner in amateur radio, then yeah, by all means, go to this chat openai.com and type in your questions. But there's a few cases that we saw it didn't get right, like it couldn't design a quarter wavelength radials or verticals. It got the stuff confused. I reckon the most used Morse code word would be maybe K or prosine. Right, this is taking a while to refresh our limerick. It's taking a while. It's the cursor is flashing, but that was promising before. We were able to get. I'll just refresh it again. But it was able to give us a limerick. Okay. I've got another one. There once was an amateur radio man whose signal was weak and not grand. He practiced and learned. His signal then turned to a powerful, clear transmission band. Okay, man and grand don't quite rhyme, but yeah, okay. Let's regenerate that. Oh, that's quick. There once was an amateur radio ham whose signal was never too sham. He'd transmit with great flair on the airwaves so rare, and his signal was heard loud and grand. Yeah, okay. There once was a ham operator named Ted whose signals... I'll read that again. There once was a ham operator named Ted whose skills were quite impressive, it said. He'd talk to the world with just one small twirl on his trusty old radio's dial instead. Okay. There once was a ham operator named Ted, whose signal was clear and well-bred. He talked all around in a very low sound and was respected by all he had led. Yeah, it's sort of, it doesn't quite get the sense of, you know, if you're writing it, a little bit lame. What about here's another. There once was a ham on the air whose signal was always quite clear. With a Yagi on the roof, he talked to the proof of his skill as a radio engineer. Okay. What about let's do a limerick, another limerick, pirate radio. There once was a pirate on air, broadcasting music without a care. He broke every rule, but played such cool tunes that the listeners would flare. Actually, here's another pirate one. There once was a pirate on air, broadcasting music without a care. The FCC was mad, but the people were glad to hear the DJ's voice loud and fair. That's actually about the best one. But anyway, there's some questions there. How many radios is too many? Okay, we're back to asking questions. How many? So thanks to Chris, how many radios is too many? It depends on the individual and their specific situation. Some people may only need one radio, while others may require multiple radios for different purposes. Yeah, one radio, Balfing. Generally speaking, having too many would imply that the person has more radios than they need or can effectively use. So there's a bit of a censorious tut finger waving here. I'll repeat that again. Generally speaking, having too many radios would imply that the person has more radios than they need or can effectively use. It can be considered as too many when it becomes difficult to maintain and store them. Yeah, okay. Okay, who made a variometer with a bucket? Let's see if it knows what a variometer is. Yeah, we're just I couldn't find any references to a specific person who made a variometer using a bucket, but it is possible that some amateur radio enthusiasts or experimenters have made one as a DIY project. A variometer is a type of instrument that measures the rate of change of a variable. Okay, yeah, no, they've got themselves in a knot there, such as a magnetic field. I'm not sure how a bucket would be used to make a variometer, but it could be used as part of a homemade sensor or part of a larger device. Yeah, no, they've got no clue there. Let's try a limerick about a specific facet of amateur radio. Limerick about amateur radio DX antenna. I've just typed in. And hello to Leon. Yes, come back from walking the dog. Well, if you've just joined, this is a rather special Q&A where you've been asking questions of me, but instead of me answering them, I've been using artificial intelligence. And it can even, as we just learned, write limericks. So here's the latest one. There once was a ham on the air with a DX antenna that was quite rare. He heard all the world, his signal unfurled, and made contacts beyond repair. And let us do a limerick. Limerick Homebrew Radio DSB. There once was a ham who built a DSB with a homebrew radio that was quite the fuss. He sent out his voice and made many rejoice with a signal that caused quite a buzz. It puts in a few funny words in here. There once was a homebrew radio. DSB was the mode it did know. It sent out with a roar, double sideband once more, and the audio was crystal clear, aglow. Okay. Well, there is a. What's the most used Morse code word? I'll type that in as Chris asked that question. Hello to Leon. Hope that you're enjoying your retirement. Okay, well, we've just got an answer coming through. The most commonly used Morse code word is probably SOS, which is a distress signal used internationally. Well, certainly the most known Morse code word, but not the most used. Otherwise, we'd be on sinking ships everywhere. The letters SOS was chosen for the signal as it was easy to transmit on Morse code, and it goes on about distress signals. So, yeah, no, not quite the answer we're looking for. And I just tried it again. The most commonly used is SOS, and it kept doing that again. So if you've just turned on, you can ask me anything, and I'll try and use artificial intelligence to get you an answer. What about a limerick? Limerick ship sinking SOS. Oh, excellent. What is the future of ham radio? Okay, I'll answer that in a moment. There once was a ship in distress. SOS, the signal it did express. The crew was saved in time thanks to the Morse chime and a rescue that was truly the best. That was actually, that's quite nice. I like that. Okay. It's thinking about another one. What is the future of ham radio? Oh, I think it's still thinking about another limerick. I'm guessing that there's a lot of people probably using it, and it's probably training, using lots of power and lots of service. Why shouldn't I be? That's a good question. Why shouldn't I be a ham radio operator? Oh, we've got another limerick coming up. Okay. There once was a ship in distress. SOS was sent with much impress. The crew was saved. Their lives well behaved, thanks to the signal of distress. So, okay. So this thing is pretty much a glass half full guy. It's in both cases the people on the ship have been saved. So, yeah, okay. So what is the future of ham radio? Oh, too many requests in 1 hour. Try again later. Okay. Okay. Oh, too many requests again. Well, I would have really liked to have. Yeah, this has got too popular. why shouldn't I be a ham radio operator? I'll try that one. Okay, too many. Okay, it's too many requests. Okay, so we'll so it wants us to come back a bit later on. But anyway, the website is chat.openai.com/chat, and yeah, overall it's been quite impressive, and it could well be a useful learning tool. But at this stage, you can't take everything it says at blind faith, as it does get some technical things wrong. So yeah, I think we'll, unless you've got any questions you want to ask me, the non-artificial, don't know about the intelligence, but anyway, yep, we've been going for nearly 2 hours, so we'll maybe run it against one of the trial ham exams online. Yeah, I was thinking if you were to get the American question bank and put in questions, it'd be interesting to see what it says. I wonder how it would do if you provided. We haven't yet got to the limits of how long your questions can be, or whether it could do multi-choice format. Like if you put in a, what's the length of dipole for 7 megahertz, and you put in, 4 choices A, B, C, and D with the numbers. I wonder if it would actually understand. If it can write limericks, then surely it can could understand multiple choice questions. But yeah, it's funny. Like I put in, the first thing I played around with yesterday. I was putting in stuff to do with pirate radio, or I think I asked a question like, what was the easiest way to how do you set up a pirate radio station? And the answer was just like what you'd read in an electronics magazine from the 60s. It said how you shouldn't do it, and it was illegal, and we won't give you advice as it was illegal. So, but it said how you should be doing legitimate things like ham radio or go and work for a broadcast station. But anyway, it's a really, really good answer. Yeah, it can be a bit of fun. It can waste a lot of time, like we've wasted nearly 2 hours today. So, yep, I think I'm going to have something to eat. Yeah, thanks for joining. And yeah, okay, yeah, could struggle with the Aussie exams. So yeah, anyway, there's a few videos coming up, especially HF. HF conditions have been pretty good. Pedestrian mobile. I've been doing a bit of pedestrian mobile, including pedestrian mobile CW. So yeah, I've been having some DX contacts with that. In fact, arguably this morning, even though I did go down to the beach, I didn't take the radio, but I could have done. And because today being Monday morning, it would have been good for long path into the US. Sunday and Monday morning would probably be the best times because it's their weekend. So anyway, I'll probably fiddle around with this super regen. I've been messing around with super regen receivers. And do I get people coming up and ask what I'm doing? Yeah, often quite a lot. Yeah. So I tell them that I'm a terrorist and I talk to aliens and all that. But yeah, it's you get some quite good conversations, and they're actually more interesting than the conversations that you're having on the air sometimes. So yeah, can be a lot of fun. So thanks all for joining, and Happy New Year to everyone. And I'll make this the end.